Cool. So what we're going to move into now is generating a bit of a nicer patch to work with as opposed to the initialized serum preset. Obviously, sounds great, but get some character going. And with this track, I think we're going to head down more of a deeper liquid route, a bit more interesting, I think, in terms of options as how the track is going to progress. So yeah, we'll try and get a nice patch going, and we're kind of creating a synthy, plucky, but slightly more characterful sound than a piano, I think, in Serum. So yeah, we're going to take you through that and work through a few different elements in Serum and look at how we get our sound, really. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so like, because we kind of go for a plucky sound, straight away you kind of want to create that shape with the envelope. And by that, what we mean is kind of having like a sharp attack to kind of get that initial pluck sound, and then the sound kind of slowly but surely fade away. So it's not all one volume level, it's got way more dynamics to it. So what I've done is just add a really basic envelope shape here. Envelope 1 is kind of the main envelope of the sound for the whole of Serum. So yeah, I've just shaped that by just taking out some of the loads of the sustain, adding a bit of release. I'll add a bit more actually, so the sound carries on after you kind of let go of the keys. Decays kind of medium-ish, so 2 seconds. So what that means is you've got your keys held down on the sound, but it's the decay, the volume is going to basically go down to 0 in the time it says there, so 2.1 seconds.
Yeah.
So that's a really basic envelope shape. And then what we'll do is, as well, we don't actually want to use this initial preset. We'll just basically drag in a wavetable. I can't remember where we got it from, but you'll obviously get access to it as part of the project files. So yeah, we'll just add that in, and this wavetable is quite interesting because it has like 255 or 4, I think, positions, but like you can see it goes from literally a 0 signal through to a bunch of weird and wonderful wobbly lines that basically have loads of resonances in them and should provide a pretty interesting kind of palette for the sound we're going for. And what we want to do is, so normally with wavetable synthesis, the nice thing is you can obviously flick between the different wave shapes in a kind of back and forth fashion, but rather than using the LFO in the traditional sense, we're going to use it as an envelope to kind of just cycle through those waves one time. So I'm just going to stick an LFO on here, and at the moment, if we play it, you can see it will cycle continuously through the sounds. But actually, yeah, so you can just see that, and you can see the envelope withdrawn as well, how it's following that shape.
Yeah.
But actually, what we want it to do is just go through once. So we're just going to put envelope mode on, which means that if I hold the key down, it'll just go through it once. But yeah, I'm also going to turn sync off, so it's actually not kind of snap to the tempo of the track, because we actually want it to go quite fast, and just once, because you kind of want to simulate almost like a string being plucked, and the kind of how those strings would vibrate to a stop is kind of what we're going for here. And we just want it to go through everything. So I'm just going to draw a shape in here that will make this oscillator essentially go from left to right. This wavetable position go from left to right. We'll put a little bit of curve on that as well. So now it just goes through once. So it starts on wavetable 1 and goes all the way through to wavetable, I think 255 or whatever it is.
Yeah. I think with our sounds, we always try and aim for stuff that's got a bit of movement, a bit of character to it. It's not just a straight up sort of sustained note, if you like. So we do that with not just synths but basses as well. It just helps kind of give interest and different sources of interest to your ear as well. So obviously you get the initial start of the sound, which sounds good, but then as it tails away, you can work on that as well. So the whole sort of sound as one does sound good to you. And obviously, with a lot of our synthesis and kind of post processing, I guess filtering is really important. And we'll kind of, as we go through this, you'll see how we kind of filter at multiple stages to take bits in and out of the sound and just give interest as well.
Yeah, so I'm gonna add a filter, and I've added this LP12 filter, which is like a low pass phase filter. It's a bit more interesting than a straight up low pass filter. And what we're gonna do is basically add some movement to the sound and control that with another envelope. So straight away I'm just gonna whack the drive all the way up, just to kind of add some character, add some saturation, and kind of bring out some of those resonances that are gonna happen during the sound occurring. We're going to add a little bit of the frequency knob, and I mean resonance at 10 is probably okay because there's already loads of drive on it. if you have loads of drive and loads of resonance, you're probably going to get a pretty horrible sound at the
You're
end of
gonna
it.
get a foghorn, mate.
But yeah, basically gonna get a foghorn. We'll move the cutoff down, but obviously we're gonna automate this cutoff knob basically with an envelope. So I'm just gonna stick an envelope on here, but we'll make the shape a bit more interesting. I'm just gonna drag, kind of create this shape, and this is just from experimentation, kind of figuring out what kind of sounds good. When you cycle through sounds,
You can have obviously your main envelope controls the amplitude essentially of that wavetable that we're processing here, and you could, if you want to, get that same movement mimicked within the kind of filter cutoff, but it could sound a bit boring. So having a bit of disparity between the two does sometimes sound pretty good as well, and you do get some interesting frequencies, especially when you sort of mash about with it a bit. So obviously we've got envelope 1 and 3 there. You can see the shadow envelope 1 in the background. It is roughly the same shape, but it's a bit different. So we're going to get some nice interplay between the two envelopes, hopefully.
We'll see. It's all about experimentation. So I'm just going to play it now and see what it sounds like. Okay, so I'm just going to turn the master down a little bit. That was clipping, but straight away we've got that nice plucky sound. So we've already got the basis of a better sound than we had before. So you can hear it's nice and plucky, and the shape of it and the way it decays is nice. And we might need to revisit the melody, but that's the kind of idea of designing and then kind of going back. You can kind of figure out what's going to sound good with that sound.
Maybe we can put a bit more decay and sustain up as well, just to match the kind of slowish chord progression.
Yeah,
the sound does disappear by the end.
Not a bad idea. We'll do that on both. Put a little bit.
Obviously, this is very raw at the moment, but as you go through the process, and it starts to take shape a bit more.
Yeah. So I'm just going to automate that as well. Maybe we don't want it to open all the way up. We want it to be a little bit more muted. There we go. Sounds a bit nice. So actually, what I might do as well is just stick the unison up as well.
Yeah.
To get a nice wide sound. We'll just take the detune down a little bit. There we go. So what I did there, unison is basically like how many. When you add more unison, you're essentially adding more, like stacking up that sound with the same sound several times. So essentially like voices. So we've now basically got 5 voices playing the same thing, which if you spread it really wide with the detune knob, you can get some really, really wild effects. But it sounds super like kind of horror movie.
Atonal.
Yeah, super atonal. So we're just going to kind of bring the detune down. And we'll also bring the random phase down as well. Maybe explain why the random phase is important.
Yeah, so if you take the random phase all the way down to 0, it means every time MIDI triggers Serum to play, it's going to start at the same point of the wavetable, which means you get a kind of consistent sound. Now with synth sounds like this, it's obviously relevant, but it's not as important as, say, as a bass sound. That's the thing that's going to impact in the low end of your track, kind of. But with synths, obviously, if you want to have control over it, getting that random phase point out of the way and having it starting at the same point every time is a pretty good thing to do. It just helps you get a consistent sound. It's not essential, but it's something we do quite often, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. So that's created quite a nice, wide, kind of almost Rhodesy sound there. But we'll just slap a bunch of effects on it now just to make it sound a bit more
Maybe drop it an octave as well.
Yeah, maybe drop it an octave too. It's a good shout. So I'm just going to select all chords with Command and A or Control and A if you're on Windows, and then just shift them down. This bottom there might be too low now, but we'll see.
Last chord needs changing.
Yeah, we'll sort the last chord out afterwards, but we'll just finish making this sound and then we can go back to that. I'm going to just slip some effects on now just to make it sound a bit more interesting. So straight away, give it some more movement basically. Straight away we'll stick on some hyper dimension, which is kind of like a stereo widening tool. And to be honest, the default setting on this normally sounds pretty good. So we'll just turn the mix up a bit.
Yeah, we do tend to use the Serum presets internal quite a lot. With synth sounds especially, because you do get some nice character coming out of Serum. Obviously, these effects within Serum do sound like Serum effects, so they do have a kind of unique sound, which is good and bad. But once we've processed the sound in Serum, we'll carry on processing it outside and get some more interesting textures in there from other plugins and processing. But just to get an initial vibe down, we definitely these serum effects are useful for sure.
Yeah, they definitely are useful. So yeah, adding chorus, we use a lot of chorus in our productions. To be fair, again, it just gives a nice kind of spacey, eerie, wide sound to things. So yeah, added a bit of chorus here, which you can see immediately makes it sound even wider. We'll just turn the feed up a little bit. Depth's good. Maybe turn the low pass filter off as well, so it's processing the whole signal. Cool. Maybe turn that delay down a little bit more.
Yeah, what we're trying to get with chorus and these like hyperdimension plugin is just a bit more space to the sound. Otherwise, it just sound a bit digital and not very kind of organic. A lot of our sounds do end up being quite organic-y, if that's an adjective that people understand. It doesn't really mean anything, but you know what I mean. It's got a nice character to it, I guess.
And yeah, we're going to kind of continue on this journey of making things sound ultra wide. Yeah, it's definitely
a journey, is it?
But yeah, I'm going to use a delay, but again, not in a traditional sense. I'm going to use a really short delay on this sound and basically kind of make the left and right channel go at different speeds to kind of get a little bit of phasing going. But you'll see again, it's just going to kind of create a nicer. It's quite subtle, but yeah, it creates a nice wide sound.
Yeah. That's a technique that's been used for years, like slapback delay on like vocals and stuff.
It's
basically
a slapback delay. Just gives a lot more character to that initial attack of the sound as well. Right, and we'll keep going. We'll add some reverb. Well, to be fair, the reverb one's an interesting one because depending on how you're going to use it, like sometimes you can use reverb to drive a distortion, or obviously use it to create space. We tend to actually not use reverb that much in Serum just because we've got so many other nice plugins that can generate. Should we leave the reverb off this one, or should we?
Let's put it on. Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, the Serum reverb is okay. It's nothing spectacular. It's quite digitally. It's quite good for electronic music, I guess, but ultimately we are going to put nicer reverbs on at the end, but we'll put a bit on there just for space. Like John says, it can add interesting results further down the line if you do run this through other maybe like distortion or filters. You do get sort of more nice tones coming from the reverb as well. And
we just wanted to kind of process the kind of highs and mids. I'm just going to move the low cut up and also the high cut, so it's only processing quite a narrow band actually.
Just gives it a bit more space in the mix.
Yeah, a little bit more space. Spin rate, I'll be honest, I don't exactly know what spin rate does, but I know you can hear the change of the sound when you move it. This is where our technical knowledge might fall down a little bit.
Yeah, but to be fair, spin knob is not you don't find that parameter in other reverbs. It's just a random.
I know someone's going to probably get into contact with us to explain what exactly. What
Galaxy
does.
does nothing.
Yeah, that's fine. We're going to continue to shape the sound a little bit with some EQ as well. And again, you can do this inside or outside of Serum, but yeah, it's quite nice to have it in the chain and then be able to process that whole sound at the end afterwards.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I'm just going to kind of shape it a little bit, shave off a little bit at the low end.
When it comes to like the Serum EQ, again, it does a job at what you need it to do. It can be used creatively, particularly when it comes to like bass design, things like that. You can obviously you assign envelopes or LFOs to different parameters here, which can lead to interesting results. But in general, we're just going to use this to shape the sound, and not do any kind of like surgical EQing. Really, just give it a bit of a boost and a bit of a duck here and there, just to
Yeah, and basically what we've done is kind of boost the high mids and the highs. Cause that's where all the magic is in this sound. And straight away, again, it kind of with the stack of effects, but after that, kind of before this, it really exaggerates this kind of like pluck sound, and it kind of sounds nice and wide. And I can kind of just show you the before and after. It's quite a dramatic change, that actually.
Obviously, we don't need to worry too much here about taking everything we want from the sound in one go. We're going to layer this up with other elements, so it doesn't sound like it's too much bottom end at the moment, but we can bring that in with pads, other kind of layers to accompany this. Obviously, the bass. So yeah, taking that low end out just leaves space for other stuff as well.
Yeah. Basically what Tom said. A lot of our sound, we don't. And you'll see this throughout the course as well. Like a lot of our sound is generated through layering loads of stuff together, which can look kind of chaotic, but it all kind of finds its own space and it all kind of works together nicely. It's very difficult to get the sound you're looking for in your head out of one synth or one plugin. Very often, all of your favorite producers would have basically resampled stuff a load of times. Will have built up a stack of sounds and they're all kind of interacting with each other. That's kind of that's where the interesting stuff happens basically. So just going to compress this a little bit with the multi-band, and I think anyone who's used this before or used X4 will be familiar with OTT. That kind of multi-band mode kind of simulates that a little bit. Obviously, you can control it a bit more, but yeah, we're just going to do that. We're going to leave that on 100%. Let's just play this as well. Wow, so that's quite. You can hear it. That's just killed loads of the sound. We'll just turn the highs down.
Yeah, so what you're doing with the multiband compressor is obviously, you can either duck elements of the sound that you want less of, or exacerbate elements of the sound that you want more of. So it does give you a nice bit of control. The multiband compressor in Serum obviously is pretty aggressive, which is good and bad. But yeah, again, it just gives you a nice control over the sound, really.
Yeah, I'll just turn that back up on the mastering again. Yeah, I think it probably sounds okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
Maybe touch the attack off the envelope one. Sounds like it's quite a click at the start.
Turn the attack down. Yeah, just turn it up.
And in envelope one, maybe just duck a bit of the attack off because it's a bit of a click. That's 3.
Oh, that is 3. Well spotted.
So yeah, within the envelope, sometimes if you have it set to like 0 and the attack set to 0 or 0.5, the sound starts very quickly, and what that can result in is clicking, which doesn't sound great. So yeah, always just be aware of that, really.
Cool. And lastly, to kind of finish off shaping this sound, I'm just gonna add another low pass filter just to kill off a little bit of those highs that we've gained. And kind of just capture a bit more of those resonances in the high mids as well. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward what this one's doing. And in fact, just a little bit more control in there. Versus,
it's about top end. It's quite digital and nasty in a way. So just a little bit of filter in there gives it
softens the sound a little bit.
Yeah, nice and soft.
Lovely and soft, and that's the basis of the sound we're going to use. But yeah, we'll talk about how we go from here. I mean, do we want to revisit the melody?
Let's give it a run through the whole loop. See what it's sounding like at the moment. I like the first half of that progression. Potentially the second half could be a bit better, but we'll run with it. Obviously, this might not be the final chord progression of the entire tune, and we'll bring in other layers that might take us in a different direction. But I don't know, as a starting point,
I think as a starting point, it's okay. I think we can probably just process this a bit more.
Yeah, definitely.
And then start laying down some drums or something.
Yeah, so maybe should we get some external reverb on there, just a bit more character, maybe bit of tape emulation. Yeah.
So one thing I'm gonna do is just duplicate it, and this is something that I do. This is force of habit, and bounce it to audio.
Absolutely loves it.
Yeah, it's got advantages. It's got advantages for processing power, but also for decision making as well. But I guess by keeping a version that's unfrozen, you kind of have the option to go back if you need to.
Yeah.
But it just kind of keeps you focused on the next task at hand.
Yeah.
So one thing that we do a lot is, pretty much every sound in every project has a filter of some kind on it. And I guess the reason is because having dynamics in a track is really important, and not just like kind of volume, but like frequency as well. So like some things that kind of, if something's unfiltered and it's got loads of high end and it's really rich in the mids and it's playing constantly, it can become a bit boring basically.
Yeah, definitely.
And at certain points in the tune, and we'll talk about this in the arrangement probably section, but at certain points in the track you want different elements to take center stage essentially.
Yeah.
In the intro you might want it to be a piano loop, but then when the drop comes you might want it to be the bass line, for example. And a really easy way to do that is just to use filters.
Yeah. And you can get so many results of filters as well, and obviously especially in Ableton they're super easy to automate. And it's just a great place to start shaping your sound a bit further, I think.
Yeah, so we tend to use the Ableton built-in filter. It actually just does a job for us. I don't think we use any other filter actually. I think we just use this one. It's
perfect emulation, really. Yeah. You've obviously got a few different filter modes there, which mimic your I think SMP's an SP1200 emulation, and you've got the MPC one, which is obviously an MPC. yeah, you got an MPC emulation there, and then I forget what the other two are, but yeah, they emulate classic filters essentially. And it's just a good place, yeah, to start really. So
yeah, so straight away added a bit of drive, added a bit of resonance, and that's just, again, it's just going to emphasize different parts of the sound. So you can straight away, that's almost like a completely different sound.
One thing to watch as well is obviously your levels in the output of the filter. Obviously initially that's fine, but as you add more and more plugins in, potentially you're going to run into issues. So that's just something to watch out for.
Yeah, so this is running a little bit hot, so I might just reduce the gain a little bit.
Should we get some super VHS on there?
Yes.
That Journey of Width you're on about.
Yeah.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah. So this is a plugin by... Are we allowed to talk about?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah?
We talked about Serum.
True. Yeah, true. We'll stop the recording there.